Welcome back to Brashonomics. We are lucky enough to have Scott Monroe joining us, who has been consistently in the top 1% of agents since he became a realtor. Scott, how are you, buddy?
Thanks, I'm good.
I'm good. I haven't seen you in a little while.
It's been a while,
Yeah,
couple months.
A couple months. So, in my monologue, I was talking a little about what service people can expect after the transaction, right? And a lot of people, I guess, when they work with a real estate agent or a mortgage lender, they feel like their situation was truly unique. But oftentimes, don't you think a professional can kind of help them navigate it, no matter how unique it is at any point in time, if they jump in a little bit late?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things I work really hard at is trying to go over and above service, not only during the transaction, but especially afterwards. And frankly, that's what helps me be a top producer, because that's where I get a lot of my referrals. Mm-hmm. Because people call me after they're in the house and say, Scott, do you know somebody for windows, or should I do this, or how much bang do I get? Yesterday I got a call, somebody's considering building a 2-car garage, and they wanted to know, is it worth it? Mm-hmm. How much would that be? Would I get the value out of it, et cetera? And then, do I know anybody that could help them do it?
Mm-hmm. So, that tends to then really tie into a direct reflection of a growing business, it sounds like, for you.
Absolutely. It's the thing that I'm probably the most known for in my community area and that people boast about me about.
Yeah, I think that's such a key point. And then, of course, knowing the real estate market as well, everybody knows at this point in time in Seattle, at least people who are listening, that there is not a lot of houses. There are not a lot of houses that are for sale in the city and surrounding areas. I know you do a lot with relocation. Does that affect them on their way in?
Absolutely. It's a big, big problem, especially right now, whether it's relocation or just buyers in general. But last week, I had some people up from Google, for instance, that are looking at relocating up here. And the inventory is just tough. So it's actually disappointing for them when they look around and just see how competitive it is and that there's really not much to choose from. So consequently, a lot of people are going to rentals for a time just to see if the market will calm down.
And even rentals have a pretty incredible, a lack of rentals as well. Isn't it hard to find housing at all?
Absolutely. I keep saying that same word.
But it's just the truth. There's just a lot of tough times out there for people looking for a house.
Yeah, we had 2 weeks ago a property management company come to our office pitching us on, if you're doing a market appraisal on a house and they can't afford to sell, have them call us. Maybe we can rent it for them because we cannot get enough inventory.
Yeah, we heard yesterday about people, literally houses renting for $3,000 or $4,000 in the city, which is much more than it would cost to buy one. But the problem is nobody can even find a house to buy.
Yeah, that's true. It's been said we're below 50% of our average inventory, for instance, in West Seattle, where I'm at right now.
Are there other neighborhoods that you really see this peaking in, or I suppose dipping in the furthest?
Well, the hot ones are always, the central Seattle area, Queen Anne, Magnolia, Fremont, Finney Ridge, Green Lake, Wallingford,
it seems like in this market, central Seattle is expanding north a little bit too.
It is, and that's what you find, and that's what, frankly, I tell buyers right now is you got to extend your tent stakes a little bit, because you're probably not going to find what you want in this tight little grouping of neighborhoods.
Of the 9 houses you have a choice of being in or whatnot, walking distance to that restaurant.
Absolutely. Like last night, for instance, I wrote an offer, and it was a short sale. I had to compete. In one day, there were 3 offers on it. And this house is, needs work. And,
just a house.
Yeah. And we fought hard to get it, and we had to pay over asking to get it on a short sale.
Are there, so even the short sales, bank-owned, is there price ranges that also tend to have more competition, or is it kind of across the board? Because, we'll look at inventory levels, and it doesn't seem like there's houses for sale for $10 million, for $4 million, for $500,000. It seems pretty across the board.
And we're still kind of in that recovery mode, but the 3 to 600 price point is just smoking hot, and you're going to struggle to find anything in that price point. And if you're a seller and you're on the market and you don't sell it in a week,
something's wrong.
You got problems, because it should, because there's that many buyers out there.
Is that kind of the time frame you're giving people then? Is it a week of, hey, look, if we almost have to adjust after just 1 week of putting something on the market?
Yeah, I mean, if you got a good, reasonable house in a decent neighborhood on a reasonable street, yeah, absolutely. You should sell it within easily a week or two. If it's a funky monkey weirdo, Uncle Fred remodel,
a dome house or something with a.
You see these houses. Like I call them Uncle Fred remodels, where it just looks like somebody with really no skills came in and did a bunch of work and did this lean-to shed addition for the baby's room in the back. And
I just love that you said lean-to. We had a whole conversation about lean-tos the other day.
Oh,
yeah,
on houses.
Well, it's the point of you got to find shelter, and hopefully you don't have to live under a lean-to.
Exactly. I grew up in Alaska, so it was the Wild West up there. So you see all these bizarre additions with no rhyme or reason, and ugly's ugly. I mean, and it doesn't sell good. So those kind of houses, not so much. People aren't fighting for those.
The ones with the obvious garage that's been converted into the bedroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Scott Monroe joins us, broker with Windermere Real Estate. Scott, is there price ranges, or house styles with less competition? You talked about the funky monkey Uncle Fred remodel houses that people aren't buying. Is there price ranges that are also less attractive, or does it seem to not go there?
Yeah, I found that the upper end is still not as red hot unless you got just a smoking location going for you, or you're on like Queen Anne. That tends to always defy the odds. But over in West Seattle, for instance, if you're a mill or over, there's not quite as much competition for those homes still. And I know some pretty great waterfront homes that have had to do hefty reductions to get buyers in, and they're still hanging around. So the high end in the city is definitely slower. Now on the east side may be different.
Yeah. And in West Seattle then specifically, because I know that's where you focus a lot of your business, so it really sounds like that 300 to 600 range is just hot. What about that 600 to $1 million? Is it still hot?
It depends. There's just not much on the market, and so those buyers are usually the move-up buyers, and so they are specific on the type of house they want to buy. They don't want to compromise because it's maybe their third house. So if the house isn't there, they're going to hold out. They're not going to just settle for less. So those ones,
and that's kind of what it looks like. Those people are much more cautious of making a mistake.
Absolutely, and they should be. And honestly, this is where a good agent can help too. Is kind of like Kenny Rogers said, you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. And that's one thing that I'm really careful with buyers and say, you know what, you can do better than this. Is this the best house that's going to come along in the next 3 to 4 months? If it is, make a play on it. If it's not, wait.
Is there anything that's surprising about the attitude of clients? I mean, you talk about needing maybe a good agent to know when to hold them or know when to fold them. Do you tend to see a lot of emotions get involved where they want to just win the house?
Yeah, frustration and compromise is always the tendency, when they've got the rear kicked a few times and they just lose hope. Frankly, they start feeling like they're just never going to have a chance at a house, so they're going to have to settle for less.
And what about on the relocation side? I mean, because it's always interesting to have people who live here who understand a lot more of maybe the intricacies of the real estate market, what it means to be on the east side or what it means to be in Queen Anne. I imagine when people come in from other parts of the country and they're thinking, well, what is this Queen Anne thing? Or why do you call that the east side? And then they see house prices. I mean, that must be pretty shocking to them.
It can be. The Google guys that came up, they're living in Palo Alto, and the reason they're moving is they were making plays on $1.7, $1.8 million houses that need complete renovation, no view, just clunkers, really, and they're not even getting
Uncle Fred remodels.
Yeah, they need Uncle Fred. They'll buy an Uncle Fred remodel. They just can't even get it. But so when they come up here, the prices are really great, but they're seeing the inventories down. The problem with the relo buyers right now is that they're on a very compressed time schedule because the company wants to get them working, integrated, and doing their thing fast. Usually they only get 30 to 60 days of corporate housing. They're on a tight schedule, and that is really, really tough when they don't have any idea where they want to be. There's no inventory, and the office is begging them to get in and start working.
So what are the solutions in those situations?
Rent. A lot of them are.
Just find a house. Give me something to live in.
The solution, honestly, is consider more areas. At the end of the day, that's really all you can do, or be patient. So,
right. Scott Monroe joins us here with Windermere Real Estate. Scott, when people have to rent or buy and they only have this 30 or 60-day window, is there do you give them a time frame by which you need to find something? I mean, if they have 60 days, it could take 30 to 45 days to close on a house. Does that really only give them 2 weeks to find something?
it can. And usually, like on a corporate deal, they're usually coming up a few corporate trips beforehand. So once they're up here, they're hoping they're already in contract on a house. So they're just waiting for the thing to close. But oftentimes they're not. And it's a blitz, man, because you're going out in a week and you may see
500 hours, 30
exactly,
houses.
yeah.
19 of them are sold.
I'm hitting people from the city to the east side to wherever because, for instance, I had eBay's transferring some people up. And
eBay's here now?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Trying to bring up 200 people out of San Jose.
Interesting.
And their office is over by Texas Instruments stuff over in Redmond, but they are probably not going to stay there. That's a challenge. So you're pitching people on an area, and I'm going, God, they don't even know where they're going to end up because they're probably
Next thing you know, they're back in South Lake Union.
Yeah,
and they're going,
exactly.
Wait a minute, this was not the commute we had in mind.
Yeah, so that's a challenge there. And those kind of people in good conscience, I can't even tell them to buy. I said, I wouldn't buy because I know Seattle. And if you guys end up over by Lake Union and you're in Redmond now, you sure as heck don't want to be moving to Redmond and commuting to Lake Union.
People do it every day. I still can't get over the people. I mean, there are people who commute a very, very long way from work. Is that, and we do have to go to break, but is that something you bring up to relocation clients more and more just because of the traffic?
Every time. And I always go, what do you got now? What are your tolerances now? What do you love? What do you hate? What do you do when you're home? Because to me, you buy a home in an area you don't love, but you like the house, you're going to want to move in a year. But you move into a community that you love, the house becomes kind of less important. Mm-hmm. You'll really like it. And so I try to fit all that in with what they have now, what they do now, and what they're kind of used to.
And once they get into the house, most people are just staring at the iPad or their cell phone or the TV anyways, right?
Yeah, and some, especially those cookie cutter neighborhoods where, they have no soul. Some of the communities, there's just, you got a nice new house, but that's about it.
And hey, but you can look right out your window and see your neighbor's kitchen.
Yeah, you can borrow the sugar right out the window, right?
What a deal. Scott, thanks so much for joining us. We do have to go to break. When we come back, Aubrey Cohen from the Seattle PI will join us. We'll be right back.